I'm ready.
Perfect. Okay. And we are recording. Hi, Kyle. Thank you for being here with us today on Boss Talks.
Thank you for having me.
I am here with the amazing Kyle Eustice. You might recognize her from our Women in Music Journalism panel, the very first one. Thank you, Kyle, for being here again. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Okay, my name's Kyle Eustice, like she said, and I am a senior writer at Hip Hop TX. I am also a senior contributor at Thrasher Skateboarding Magazine, where I've been for 11 years. I write for High Times. I've worked for Chuck D for the past 8, going on 9 years. I do a little radio show with him. I'm doing a podcast right now. Now, this is actually exclusive information. I have started a podcast with MC Search of Third Base, and it's called Breaking Anonymity, and it's actually about recovery. So we're going to be talking to a lot of artists who have, gone through addiction and whatnot and get their story. And I'm really excited about that. So that's one of the things that's on the horizon. But, I have, bylines and like Wax Poetics. I used to be senior or weekend editor at The Source. Ghetto Blaster. I mean, I could go on. I've been at it for a very long time.
Amazing. Thank you, Kyle. So to jump right into things, what are some of your favorite pieces that you've gotten to write?
I think, right off the top, right when you said that, I think my 2 cover stories for Wax Poetics that I did, one on Big Daddy Kane and one on De La Soul, those are probably some of my favorites. De La Soul in particular, it was just, the front cover was Daft Punk and on the back was De La, and it was just like the dopest magazine I've ever seen. Like, it just looked so good. But I think the story that I wrote that I loved even more had to be the one about Killer Mike and LP. Now, this was prior to them forming Run the Jewels, so they had just worked together on Killer Mike's 2012 rap album, and they hadn't yet coined themselves Run the Jewels. And I got to interview them for Wax Poetics again, and it was just like this amazing feature. And pretty soon it was like, boom, they're Run the Jewels, boom, they've exploded, and it's just been kind of cool to see their journey from that time to now. So I'm pretty proud of that one. And then I guess my second favorite, this stands out too, is an editorial I wrote about Rick Ross. I don't know if I mentioned that in the panel. I might have, but he made some like really, really bad comments about women in the industry during a Breakfast Club interview. And I just got out my computer and just like fired out this editorial. And the next day he issued an apology. Well, at least his team did, but it was just such a big moment for me because it went viral and it was everywhere. And like, it got so many shares and stuff like that. Bahamadia actually reached out to me on Instagram just based on that article, like, hey, like, we should connect, and we're like good friends now. It was a really powerful moment, I think, for me as a woman in hip hop.
Yeah, I remember that article and that time at Breakfast Club. It was definitely a moment for, especially it was cool that you amplified that, right? Because I think a lot of people were nervous to cover something like that in what could be seen as calling him out. How did you find the courage to do that, or was it like a passion project for you?
I'm not really sure. I think honestly, like, it was so based on emotion because I saw it and I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I was just so mad that he would say something like that, on a national platform. So, I mean, it literally just came from, I think, being a woman in hip hop myself and like in going through some of those things, like men assuming you want to sleep with them, or men assuming, because you book them a show that you want to like hook up later, you know what I mean? Just little things like that. Or like, I could never be a promoter because I'm just the groupie, I would get mistaken for that all the time. And it's just like, no, like, enough, just enough.
Absolutely. I'm sure there are countless stories of women who have been mistaken for something like that, Kyle. So it's great.
Definitely.
We're able to it.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, I can remember interviewing some female musicians, and like they would constantly get confused for like the sound girl or like the waitress, or it was never. And they're like, no, actually, I'm here to perform, and they're like, oh. And I just think it's sad that we're still in this state, like, where women are just kind of always treated as kind of, second fiddle.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good thing that we have people in the industry, you know, like you and like the women who come on this platform who are looking to change that, because I think it's changing fast.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I'm starting to see little indications, but we have a long way to go. Definitely.
We sure do, Kyle. That brings
we have some work to do. Yeah.
Yes, girl. And that brings me to our next question, which is, what are some challenges that you faced in the industry and how did you overcome them?
I mean, I think early on, being, first of all, obviously a woman, being white, being from Omaha, Nebraska, of all places, you know, where there's not much of a hip hop scene, no shade to Omaha, but like, it's not New York City, you know what I mean? So I think initially there was a lot of doubt that I knew what I was talking about. So I think in the beginning, I felt like I really had to prove myself, but over the years, you know, as my career has evolved, I don't think I'm quite, you know, in that space anymore, just because like people will recognize my name or whatever and know that I've put in the work. I think that sometimes, like I was just talking about, like I'll still run into instances where men just kind of like want to dismiss you as like not being knowledgeable or whatever. It's not, like I said, it's not too bad these days, but definitely in the beginning it was really challenging.
Yeah. And what were some things that you did either yourself or that you told yourself to overcome when you got frustrated from situations like that?
I really think I just ignored it, to be honest. And I don't know if that's necessarily the right move. Like I think maybe now these days I'd call it out, but like in the past I was like too nervous to really like stand up for myself. But so I would ignore it and I would just kind of move on and just keep my head down and keep doing what I needed to do. But I think these days, if I ran into that again, like I would definitely say something, because I think it's crucial in this era, especially to speak up for people you see being oppressed in any way, and any kind of person.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kyle. You know, you never know who's watching you too, right? And will be inspired to speak up themselves.
Exactly. And, you know, not to get too heavy on you, but I learned a lot about this through grieving my mom, who I lost on May 11th, 2019. Through that process, I really learned to be honest with what I'm going through, because when I share what I'm experiencing, it gives people the courage to speak up as well. And I noticed that when I started sharing my grief on Facebook, it's like all of a sudden I was getting messages from people like, you know, you really helped me, you know, face my own mother's death. And I was just like, wow, really? Like I couldn't believe it. Like I couldn't believe the impact that it had just by being honest.
Yeah, exactly. Like honesty is so powerful, right? And that's kind of a pillar of journalism. Like you know, but a lot of people don't know the power that they have just by telling the truth and telling it well and outspoken. So Kyle, what have been some ways that you have used, you know, your time as a journalist, your time in the hip hop world to, you know, bring, you know, you mentioned the Rick Ross article, but to kind of bring your values into mainstream hip hop culture?
I think that I'll definitely stand up for, you know, women when I see anything happening that I feel is wrong. I'll use my platform to write about, you know, I wrote an editorial about the hypersexualization of the female rapper, you know, just like how it's such a thing now, you know. It's like if you're not taking your clothes off, you're not going to be like Billboard #1, you know, like it's just not going to happen. And so I wrote a story about that. And I really do try to just use my platform as much as possible to speak out on issues like that are important to women. And even I like to write about addiction stuff too, as well, because I feel like that's a big issue in the community and, you know, worldwide, obviously, but especially in hip hop. And we've seen a lot of deaths, a lot of overdoses in recent years. And that's another thing that's really important to my heart as well. So yeah, I just try to use my keyboard to the best of my ability. I also like, if I find women that, you know, are starting out in journalism and I really believe in them, like I try to like be there for them and encourage them and mentor them and help them if they need me. So, and that's something I really like to do as well.
That's amazing, Kyle. I think mentorship is such an important pillar here too.
Yeah, me
Did
too.
you have any mentors or anyone that you were able to look up to when you were growing in the industry?
Yeah, but I will admit it wasn't a woman. I mean, I guess maybe my English teacher. So I had two teachers in school that were just absolutely instrumental in getting me here. My first one was Tony Moten. He was a Omaha World Herald entertainment writer in the 90s. He was my journalism teacher at Duchesne Academy, my all-girls school that I lasted out for one semester. And but during that journalism class, he really lit the fire. He taught me that you could actually go to concerts and write about it and get paid. And I was like, really? I might need to explore this. So he, you know, I'm still in touch with him to this day. And then my English teacher, Mrs. Augustin, who said, you know, I really think you need to do something with writing. And this is like in 11th grade. And I was like, really? And we've stayed in touch as well. But she really inspired me to keep at it and like give it a try, you know, where everybody else was like, not everybody. I mean, my mother, obviously, she was so excited when I decided I wanted to be a writer. But a lot of people doubt that you can make a solid living doing that. It's difficult. It's not easy. And in the beginning, like when I freelanced, I mean, dude, there were times when I had like $20 in my bank account, you know, but I was like still working on it. And I just kept pushing and pushing until I finally got here. So
wow, amazing, Kyle. And what, you know, moving into the artist side of things, what have been some of the artists that you really loved covering, you were super excited to cover?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. So I think recent memory that just pops up, Rhapsody. She was one of my favorites because I fell in love with her album Eve. And I, you know, spent a lot of time. I reviewed it for Hip Hop DX. She got a perfect 5.0. Like we never give those out, but her album got that. And, you know, we got to do at least, I think, 3 interviews. And then I finally met her in Denver at a show. And it was right after my mother passed away. And I had told her what happened, and she just hugged me and was just like the sweetest, wonderful, most wonderful person. And that was really exciting for me. Then also, I finally made my dream come true and got to interview the surviving Beastie Boys last year, which was huge for me. Yeah.
That's fire.
Yeah, well, because you guys know my story. So in 5th grade, my dad bought Licensed to Ill, the first Beastie Boy record, and put it on in the car. My mother was pissed and hated it. And I was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is my new shit right here. And so Beastie Boys have always kind of been like this little beacon in my career, like guiding me through. And yeah, it's so that was huge for me. Like that was a big deal. And of course I always love covering Public Enemy because Chuck D is literally the nicest person on the entire planet.
Amazing. Wow, Kyle, those are some pretty remarkable artists to have in your portfolio. And what are some artists, you know, you're very in tune with the hip hop world. What are some new hip hop artists that you either want to cover or you think we should be looking out for?
So actually, just as you called me, I'm working on the Brockhampton review. They just dropped a new record called Roadrunner, and there's this dude on there. His name is So Gone So Flexy, and I'm really digging what he's putting out there. And the song is called Windows. If you guys haven't heard it, you should check it out. But I was really impressed with it, and it's exciting. It's he's one of the first artists on Brockhampton's new joint venture with Rick Rubin's American Songs publishing company, and it's called Video Store. So Video Store has signed So Gone So Flexy and The Blossom so far, and I think that they're on the way to, you know, doing really big things. But yeah, that's most recent, top of my head.
Awesome, Kyle, that is amazing. And finally, for our last question of the day, what is one piece of advice you would give to young women who want to get where you are?
And I don't want to sound cliche either, but okay, number one is don't give up. Whatever you do, just don't give up. Like there's so many times where I could have just thrown in the towel. Like I said, I had $20 in the bank at one point. It was really difficult, but I decided to quit my quote unquote real job in 2010 and really just go for it. And I think just don't let anybody deter you, really, and be yourself. Be yourself, and also maintain your relationships in the industry. Like that's really important. And when you're networking with people, you just want to make sure that you always keep that connection. I mean, there's people that I'm still good friends with, 10 years later, and you never know, what you guys can do together. You never know. So always be good to people, and be yourself. And don't give
that's
up.
a good one, Kyle.
Those are my those are my little tidbits. I know it's kind of cliche, but it's true. It works.
Tried and true. We love it. Well, thank you, Kyle. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's good to see you again.